Mark, after 17 years, we're eliminating your position. I nodded, shook his hand, carried my box past the break room, and smiled at the elevator camera. By the time I reached the lobby, the email was already in HR's inbox. Wednesday was going to be fun. Welcome to Karma Ledger. Today's story is told from my point of view, how a quiet goodbye turned into the most expensive restructuring my boss ever approved. I wasn't special at work. I was dependable. 17 years in facilities and safety operations at a mid-sized manufacturer. We stamp parts for bigger names you actually recognize. My badge opened more doors than the executives because I was the guy who'd show up at 3 a.m. when a compressor threw a tantrum. No drama, just wrenches, checklists, and OSHA regs memorized like song lyrics. About a year before the meeting, a change blew in with the new plant director. Ben. Brand new suit, brand new phrases, cost centers, headcount optimization. Do more with less. He'd walk the floor with a latte and tell us to park the negativity while we pointed at a machine with its guarding literally parked on the floor. He didn't hate safety. He just considered it decorative. My job put me at the crossroads of reality and spreadsheets. Reality kept filing incident reports. Spreadsheets kept saying defer. I tried to be practical, prioritize the worst, get 3 items fixed for everyone deferred. But then the accident happened, the one that wasn't catastrophic only because the operator pulled back fast. A rotating shaft without a guard kissed his glove and took a bite of cotton instead of bone. I wrote the incident report. I attached photos. I added the purchase order request for the replacement guard we'd been deferring. And I copied Ben, HR, and our corporate safety mailbox like always. Ben called me into his office the next morning. "Mark, we need team players," he said, smiling a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Let's not create noise." "Noise," I repeated, looking at the photo of the chewed-up glove on his screen. "Noise," he said again. "We'll discuss budget next quarter." That was the day I started writing a different kind of checklist. I stopped arguing in hallways and started capturing and writing. Every time we were told to run it for now, I followed up with a polite recap email and a subject line that would make a lawyer purr. Follow-up. Machine guarding employee report, corrective action pending. Every time Ben wrote defer, I replied, received, and filed it in a folder named 11C. OSHA Section 11C is the one about retaliation for raising safety concerns. If you know, you know. I also requested my personnel file. That's legal in my state. And I kept copies of my own reports, signed, time-stamped, routed through the official system. No proprietary designs, no trade secrets, just my safety documentation and the email threads where upper management told me no. Months passed. The guard never got replaced. Other items slid. Then Ben reorganized. My span of control shrank. My titles changed twice. And I had a development plan that read like a pre-printed PIP. I still didn't fight. I just documented. When HR invited me to an important conversation on a Wednesday at 9 a.m., I wore my good boots and brought a clean notebook. HR was already in the room. Ben leaned against the credenza like a man about to deliver bad news to someone he didn't know well. "Mark, after 17 years, we're eliminating your position," he said. Just like that. "Restructuring. It's not performance-related." I nodded. "Understood." He slid a manila envelope across the table. 2 weeks' pay, Cobra brochure, worthless outplacement. I looked at the envelope like it was a novelty mug. "When do you need my badge?" "End of day," he said, relieved I wasn't bawling or bargaining. "Thank you for understanding." "I understand completely," I said, and I meant it. On the way back to my desk, I didn't take a victory lap. I packed my mug, a photo of my daughter at the softball field, and my notebook. I looked at the floor I'd walked 1,000 times and realigned the stapler in the supply area because old habits die hard. Then I found an empty conference room and typed an email I'd drafted 12 times in my head. 2. HR Director, Corporate Compliance, Legal Intake. Subject: Notice of Protected Activity and Retaliation Facilities. Safety: On multiple dates list, I raised documented safety concerns, including machine guarding deficiencies, resulting in a recordable incident. Photos and reports attached. My duties were reduced following those reports, and today I was notified that my position is being eliminated. I am requesting 1. Preservation of all ESI related to my safety reports and reassignment. 2. A copy of company policy regarding non-retaliation and reorganization selection criteria. And 3. An exit package review ensuring no waiver of rights under applicable OSHA 11C state whistleblower statutes. Regards, Mark last name badge. I attached the relevant emails and incident reports, nothing else. Clicked send, breathed. By the time the elevator doors slid open, legal had replied with a one-line, "We have received your notice." Ben had not replied at all. I went home, took my daughter to get tacos, and, this is important, slept. I didn't call a friend to rage. I didn't post a thread. I let the email do its job. The next morning, HR called asking me to drop by to sign a separation letter. I said I'd be there at 2 p.m., and then called an employment attorney I'd found months before, but never needed. We spoke for 15 minutes. I laid out the timeline. He whistled when I mentioned defer guard replacement, paired with a recordable incident and a PIP after complaints. "You don't need to scream," he said. "You already wrote the script. We'll add a couple of lines." At 2 p.m., I walked into HR. Same room. Ben wasn't there. The HR director slid a new envelope across the table, this one heavier. "We reviewed your concerns," she said carefully. "Given your tenure, we can extend severance to 8 weeks, and we'll provide a neutral reference." I looked at the papers without touching them. Is legal aware of Exhibit B? Her eyes flicked, just for a second. "Which exhibit is that?" "The photo of the shaft guard on the floor with the defer reply," I said. "And the follow-up where I referenced lockout to gout training and asked for an interim barrier. It's in the thread." Silence. "I'm not looking to hurt the company," I said quietly, because that was true. "But my departure cannot look like a reward for ignoring my job. I want a clean exit. Cobra paid for 6 months, 12 months salary, unused PTO, neutral reference letter on letterhead, and a global mutual non-disparagement clause that includes Mr. Ben." Her pen stilled. "That's outside our standard." "So was having HR present for the initial meeting," I said. "The standard changed when the guard came off the machine. She excused herself to check with legal. I sat alone and read the framed inspirational quote on the wall 3 times. When she came back, her voice had softened by half a tone. "Mark, can we meet you at 6 months salary and 3 months Cobra?" "My attorney would call that a starting line," I said. "And before you ask, yes, he has the same email archive." She blinked. "You've engaged counsel?" "I engaged documentation first," I said. "Counsel is just reading along." We agreed to continue the conversation. I went home, mowed the lawn, and answered my daughter's questions about health insurance like a normal dad. Then I did something Ben didn't expect. Nothing. I didn't call OSHA. I didn't call the board. I let the email travel through the machine and find the gears it needed to jam. 2 days later, a calendar invite appeared from Corporate Compliance Interview. Not a problem. I brought a copy of everything they already had and answered only what they asked. Yes, I had raised these issues. Yes, I had received pushback and a development plan shortly afterward. Yes, I had been told the budget would be revisited next quarter, every quarter. No, I didn't think operations people were evil. I thought someone upstairs had confused quiet with safe. They thanked me and asked me not to delete anything. Already preserved, I said. That afternoon, Ben called me for the first time since the meeting. He sounded like someone trying to smile through a toothache. "Mark, buddy, I think we got crossed wires," he said. "This is just restructuring. No hard feelings." "No hard feelings," I agreed. "Just documentation." "You don't want to be the guy who makes trouble after a long career," he said. "I was the guy who made checklists," I said. "Now I'm making a clean exit." He sighed. "Let's see what we can do." What he could do, apparently, took until the end of the quarter. My lawyer and I traded drafts with HR. Every draft got better for me. 3 months COBRA became 6. 6 months salary became 9 with PTO. The neutral reference letter got signed by HR, not Ben. A mutual non-disparagement clause went both ways, and the no rehire clause got pulled, because frankly, it would have helped me more than them. Behind the scenes, I later learned, compliance had found 2 more incidents of defer now, fix later in Ben's emails. One about a mezzanine rail that someone could just be careful around. Another about a forklift route that cut through an aisle it shouldn't. Nothing sensational, just enough to make a corporate attorney calculate risk while frowning. And then the email I'd been waiting for arrived. "Please pick up final separation documents Friday at 10 a.m. I put on the same boots, drove to the same parking lot, and walked the hallway like a tourist visiting a country I used to live in. HR thanked me for being collaborative. I thanked them for reading their own policies. I signed the pages. I shook hands. It was almost dull. Until I stepped into the lobby and saw Ben. He didn't confront me. He didn't even speak. He just watched me cross the tile and glance toward the conference room where the VP of operations was waiting. Something in his posture said this meeting wasn't about Q3 wins. I didn't gloat. I held the door for a courier, walked out into the sun, and put the envelope in the passenger seat like a small animal I didn't want to scare. Quick pause. If you like stories where the loudest move is an email with receipts, hit subscribe to Karma Ledger. It's free. It helps the channel, and it tells the algorithm you like quiet plans with loud outcomes. Thanks for being here. I cashed the checks over the next month. COBRA got paid directly. I moved my daughter's appointments without a hiccup. My lawyer sent me a note that read, "Pleasure doing calm business with a calm client." I framed it, because in a life where you usually fix things with pliers, getting praised for patience feels like a new kind of win. 3 weeks later, a former coworker texted me a screenshot from the company newsletter. Leadership update. Ben's bio was gone. Pursuing opportunities. The rumor, unverified, but sweet, was that his bonus had been tied to safety culture improvements and claims performance. Funny how both numbers were suddenly slippery when the emails came out. I didn't dance, I just made breakfast. You might think this ends with a job montage and inspirational music. Not quite. The job market wasn't a red carpet. 17 years in one place makes recruiters ask why you never left. I told the truth. I stayed where my work mattered. Then I started consulting small manufacturers who can't afford a full-time safety manager, but can absolutely afford not to maim someone. I packaged checklists, training decks, guard ordering kits, and a 1-page email template called Follow Up After a No. It sold. I trained 2 plants that used to be our competitors. One of them asked if I'd consider a permanent role. I said I'd consider it if the safety budget lived in operations, not HR, and if the person in my old job got a raise. They agreed. I smiled and said I'd start after softball season. As for Ben, I saw him once more, months later, at a supply expo. He was working a booth for a vendor that sells lean solutions, with clipboards and buzzwords. He looked past me. I let him. I had a flyer to hand to a plant manager who actually fixes things. People have asked if I regret not suing. Maybe I could have squeezed more money out with a public case. Maybe OSHA would have published a press release. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes the quiet win is the biggest. Internal compliance, email trails, and polite insistence can move granite. My daughter isn't impressed by fireworks. She's impressed by weekends. I don't spend angry. If you're ever in a room where someone says, "Let's not create noise," remember this. Documentation isn't noise. It's signal. It's the difference between "he said," "she said," and page 3, paragraph 2. Make your follow-ups polite. Keep your tone boring. Boring is unbeatable in a PDF. On my last day consulting for that first plant, a line operator stopped me by the vending machines. "Hey, Mark," he said. "They put the guard back on Station 12. I nodded. "Good." He hesitated. "You did that, right?" I shook my head. "The email did." He laughed. We both did. Then I went home and grilled burgers and fixed nothing more complicated than a squeaky hinge. Sometimes revenge is a headline. Sometimes it's a quiet policy working exactly as written after you force it to. Thanks for listening.